see some pictures from places like Denmark and Moscow, from China, and even a tour I did in Baghdad. We'll try to back it up with research from places like Duke and Yale. Because I find when people see the pictures of places like Denmark, Wisconsin, and Moscow, Idaho, China, Indiana, and of course Baghdad, Florida, when we begin to back up this research at places like Duke and of course Yale, Oklahoma, we begin to realize that reality in some people's mind is one thing, but reality could be totally something else, couldn't it? Now you may just think I'm trying to be clever, but really, this isn't a novelty at all. In fact, we're not talking about something that's all that peculiar. Because we have found in the hundreds of interviews that we've done that there are factors that will lead to success. And in fact, this morning, we can tell you how to find that road to success. You can take average, ordinary people, you can put them in the exact same place on earth, and one person will find heaven, and another person will find, well, hell. And so, if people can find heaven and hell in the same place, what sets them apart? Although I will admit the folks in hell at least have a good attitude about it. But what I've found is this. Whether you look at life as positive or negative, whether you look at life as being able to affect others' lives or that you have no passive ability to affect anybody at all, whether you look at it as something great or something not so good, well, either way, you'll be correct. So what's the answer then? How do we move from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, part of it is behaviors and attitudes. It's relationships. It's what my grandfather knew. It's what a lot of folks that we interact with know. It's what we already know, but sometimes we have a tough time putting it into practice. Attitude does make a huge difference. Let me give you this example. I'm sitting in a plane in Buffalo, New York. In drives the truck that's going to pump the lavatories. Now, if we ranked all jobs top to bottom in the U.S., pumping potties in Buffalo, not in most people's top half, probably. But yet you can tell this guy, he loves what he's doing. You can tell this because, first of all, he slams the door in the truck. He has a smile on his face. He gets out. He's really hooking up the hoses. He's really going to town. But secondly, it's what's painted on the side of his truck that's a dead giveaway. It says, Steve's Septic Service. We're number one in the number two business. I'll tell you, if you're happy about being number one in the number two business, you got the attitude thing down. Morristown is one of those places you've probably not heard of, but you've heard of the company or the organization that's there. Morristown is home to the Seeing Eye. And the Seeing Eye is, of course, the place that trains Seeing Eye dogs. Well, I was sitting down with the head trainer, and we were talking about this process, interesting process of training Seeing Eye dogs. As you're looking for interview questions, you're always looking for something to elicit an interesting response. So I asked him what I thought would be an interesting question. What is the most difficult thing to train a Seeing Eye dog to do? Now, I thought that would be cross a busy street. Because I've always wondered, how does a dog go up to the street corner and a dog colorblind, how can it tell which light's which? How does it know when to go? So I asked if that was it. He kind of smiled, but he said, that's tough, but it's not really the toughest. Because think about it, you're blind, you walk up to the corner, you give the command to go. Well, the dog still has eyes. The dog can see if there's a car coming, so if you give the command to go, the dog usually doesn't walk in front of the car, get hit and die, just because you say go. That's instinct. We really don't have to train instinct, and that's part of it, intelligent disobedience. But he said, in my line of work, I found that's not the most difficult. Well, what is the toughest then? Again, he kind of smiles, and he has big windows in his office, and around the Seeing Eye, there's a big yard. He looks out one of the windows, and he said, well, it's probably that big oak tree out there. I'm thinking, that oak tree, what's that have to do with it? Now, it may not be what you're thinking of at this point. The dogs are not taking pit stops by the oak tree. He could tell I was confused. He said, well, how high off the ground is that lowest limb? I said, oh, maybe 5 feet. Toughest thing is when we put a blind person on that harness, that dog has to realize it can't go underneath that tree anymore. Otherwise, we've got a lot of blind people around here with a lot of headaches. And that just isn't going to cut it, he said. Then he said something that went far beyond dogs. He said, when a dog leaves our little school here, it must no longer see the world from 2 feet off the ground. It must see the world from 5 feet off the ground. Just like working with people, he said. If you only see it through your eyes, you just give them a lot of headaches.